Ahoy everyone, CPT-MAELSTROM here. With 1.7, Lanterns got a bit reworked. This rework removed the old tap abilities from most of the lanterns and gave the hold ability 30-second recharge time. In this video, I will break down which lanterns are the best and why. First, I will explain how each lantern works, what are the strong and the weak points of them. Since lanterns takes 30 seconds charge time to use, you can use them only once or twice per kill in hunting runs because fights are super fast. Because of this, I prefer the utility capabilities of the lantern over damage. It doesn't make too much difference, but this video assumes you don't use any or at least not too much sustain, so you would still benefit a lot from defensive lanterns. Let's start with Broadside Trials Lantern. It deals 2750 damage, explodes after 1 second and can interrupt beamats. This lantern is really similar to Embermain, so let's compare the two lanterns. Embermain deals 3250, so 500 more damage, but takes 4 seconds to explode. The 4 second is pretty much enough for the beamat to get out of the range, so you have to use it during interrupt or stagger to make it sure it does not miss, while you can use Broadside anytime because 1 second is almost instant, and Broadside can also interrupt. All of the free Omnicell tap abilities can interrupt, but if it happens to be on cooldown, you can use Broadside as a backup plan for interrupt. Next, Drask Lantern. If you want to build lantern-based builds, so Attunement, Etheric Evasion, Zeal, then Drask Lantern is the go-to because this lantern is able to deal the most amount of damage. But the damage depends on the length of the beamat. On short beamats like Shrike, Naizaga, Drask Lantern will deal less damage than any other lanterns. But on long beamats like Valomir, Charok, Pongal, Helion, it will deal super high damage. In this clip with Zeal, I dealt 12,000 damage per hold. Even without Zeal, this would be near 7,000 damage, which is double or triple as much as other lanterns. But as I said, this requires long beamats. In damage, the weakest lantern is Koshai, which deals 2250 damage, which is 1000 less than Embermain. But unlike most lanterns, Koshai Lantern kept the old tap ability, which grants 15% lifesteal for 10 seconds, and the hold ability is good for gap closers. That 10 seconds is pretty much enough to heal from 0 to full on staggered beamat, even with Disciplined, which halves the healing received. And the lifesteal is also enough to overheal the fire proc while fighting Helion. The hold ability is good for repositioning, like teleporting to beamats or follow a beamat after it being interrupted, or if you dodge too far from the beamat with Twin Suns dodge. This teleport or surge gives iframes, so during this you don't take damage, but it does not trigger dodge through perks. This is absolutely a lifesaver when you start an attack, cannot finish it before the beamat would hit you, and bam, surge. You can also surge to objects like Radiant Bubble, Koshai Thorns, Shock, Frost or Lava Pool, or Electric Fence without taking damage. This lantern can be used for so many things. It was the same as before when you could spam the lanterns, but you still don't want with this. Instead using it whenever it's ready, you want to use it when it's actually needed. Fungal Lantern deals 2500 damage over 10 seconds in a big area. This lantern is the best to proc elemental effect by itself, so without using the same element weapon. Pongal Lantern can proc freeze effect after 2 use, which means you need about 40 seconds to freeze a beamat if you're not using lantern cooldown reduction cells. And as I mentioned, fights usually doesn't last enough for this. Pongal also great to kill Fauna Fest because it has a big range. Recruit Lantern gives 300 shields for 15 seconds, that's almost nothing, so I don't even talk about this. Shrike Lantern gives 15% attack and move speed for 10 seconds to you and nearby slayers. In group, it definitely has a very good value, but in solo, it's just okayish. When the beamats start with interrupt, you can use Shrike Lantern to follow the interrupt faster, and with the overpowered damage bonus, the extra attack speed will give you even higher extra DPS. Lastly, Skarn Lantern. It deals 2500 damage and gives 30 shield per second in the next 10 seconds. So total 300 shields with 25 second duration. This lantern is also great to proc elemental effect fast, since like Pongal it takes 2 or 3 use to proc, but Terra effect. Also, like Pongal Lantern, it's great to deal with fauna, but unlike Pongal, which works in a big area, Skarn Lantern works on yourself, so you can move anywhere and it will repel the fauna. Well, at least stick seals. The difference in damage between the strongest and weakest lantern is about 1000 damage in half a minute, which based on this time isn't a huge difference. Based on this, I put utility abilities before damage when ranking lanterns. Let's see the modes. First, Trials. Trial is a game mode where you fight a single behemoth for an extended time. You either challenge yourself to complete the fight as good as you can, or just try to get sub 5 safely. For these reasons, here's the list. First place is Fungal Lantern. Most of the behemoths starts with interruptible move, then you chain it into stagger sooner or later, then interrupt again. Fungal Lantern requires lantern cooldown reduction, and in this mode you are always using potions. This makes it possible to use lantern every 10.5 seconds, freezing the behemoth in 20 to 30 seconds. Freeze not just makes overpower uptime higher, but gives longer attack windows, so you can finish longer combos. Killing fauna and destroying objects extremely fast is just a bonus. Second place, Drusk Lantern. Drusk is super close to being the strongest lantern in Trials, but many of the trial behemoths are short, so we can't say Drusk Lantern would be perfect for every Trials. Third place is probably Skarn Lantern. This is for those who have problem killing Trials. Skarn Lantern gives shield, reducing the possibility to get 1 or 2 shotted. It can also proc Terra effect, giving lifesteal. In escalation, this order is kinda the same. If you talk about 10-50 escalation, I might take damage, so Drusk Lantern. But in heroic escalation, I would go for Skarn to prevent being one-shotted, or Koshai to being able to evade attacks and get increased lifesteal. In heroic escalation, Pongal Lantern is also very good, because each fight can be 2 to 3 minutes long even with potions. Lastly, Hunting Grounds. I tried every lantern, but so far nothing can beat Koshai Lantern. It's true it doesn't deal that much damage, but it has very useful utility abilities. If you stay in Hunting Grounds map for 15-20 seconds and you don't want to spend cell slots on defense like Fortress, Cascade, Parasitic, then Koshai Lantern is perfect for healing. The only problem with this lantern is you want to use it only after you took damage. This means many of the utility cells are not great on this lantern. So, which cell you want to use in Koshai Lantern? If you take in damage often, I recommend which increase the lantern charge rate. If you want to make sure you heal to full in one use, Zeal, which increase the damage and lifesteal of the lantern. If you're using Sword, then Energize to build meter faster and stay in overdrive longer. You can also use the old meta utility cells, Conduit or Cascade, but Cascade will be active only once, so orbs not gonna be around you all the time. When you use it, you have to pick up the buffs, then no orbs for half a minute. Conduit is to get a short attack speed buff at the start of the fight after you interrupted the beam. But as you're not gonna use Koshai Lantern every time when it's ready, you might have super low Conduit uptime. I didn't really mention Embermane and Broadside Lantern above, because these too simple and doesn't really do much. Broadside can interrupt if you time it correctly, but with Discipline you have the ability to interrupt every 15 seconds, and as I said, at least for endgame players, behemoths doesn't live longer than half a minute. So in conclusion, Koshai Lantern is super useful if you don't have sustain already. Drusk Lantern deals really high damage against long behemoths. Skarn Lantern is good with Bastion. Fungal good for longer fights to freeze behemoths. Embermane and Broadside falls behind a bit, but you don't miss too much if you're using them. If you like high attack speed or you often play with other players, Shark Lantern can be really good. But keep in mind, the maximum attack speed you can have is 50%. So if you are using Assassin's Frenzy, which is 15%, Conduit 6, which is another 15%, some weapon abilities like Captain's Grip, Striker's Mantra Speed, Sword Overdrive or Warpike Wound Bonus for another 15%, Slayer's Pet Striker Reforge 5%, and you are already at 50% attack speed. So if you happen to have all these in your build, Strike Lantern not gonna do too much. But if you're using Hammer or X, it can be really good. That's everything about the Rework Lanterns. I really recommend you to try Koshai Lantern in Hunting Grounds, at least if you are using Discipline. You won't run out of healing potions anymore. Thank you guys for watching. If this video was helpful, please drop a like, and if you like to see more, subscribe. Also, if you found anything interesting related to lanterns, make sure to let me know in the comments below. Have a nice day.